Back. Welcome to
Deep Tracks
Only. I'm only doing that because I listened to Armchair Expert this morning.
Is that how he starts it?
Yeah, it's kind of like the
Dax
stupid thing to do. Today we've got a really exciting show. One of my favorite industry titans is on the show today. Andrew Osenga, who also goes by Andy Osenga,
or Secret Weapon.
Yeah, or Secret Weapon. I learned how to play guitar listening to a lot of his solo records. Just the way he crafts sounds, the way he soundscapes things, the way he creates a lot out of a little. Very inspired by some of his early stuff. And what a nice guy also.
He is.
You know what he's got in common with you? You're a nice guy too, Philip.
What else? You know what we have in common?
That shirt that we wore for James Valentine's episode. We have that in common. What else do we have in common?
We all have front teeth that don't come out.
Did you get a new tooth?
I got a new tooth.
Oh my gosh. So for a long time, Philip has been having to pull out his front tooth to eat because it's fake and it's stuck in a retainer. Because he lost.
It got stuck in.
It's like it's stuck in a retainer, and so you put the retainer in, and then the tooth sticks in there. And you've been having to take that out for a long time. I just want to tell the story the right way, so I'm going to tell it. But Philip lost the tooth playing tug of war with one of his kids, but he's playing tug of war and using his teeth to play tug of war.
Yeah.
And so that is a great way to lose a tooth.
It's a great way.
But hey, dude, A+ for fathering points, A++.
Or
common sense, D-. But
here's the deal, though. That Lovey had a little hole in it, and that little hole caught my tooth.
So just for everybody, will you level the playing field and tell us what Lovey is?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Lovey, like a little blanket, like a little baby blanket.
Okay, it sounds like lingerie. So it is what?
It's not lingerie.
Okay.
A baby blanket, like something to snuggle up with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It had a little slit in it.
Great.
It caught my tooth.
But congratulations on your tooth.
Thank you.
Bringing this full circle. You look really great. I'm excited. You're like the third best looking guy at Walrus.
Thanks.
And so,
man,
yeah.
Who's
you
first?
You were fourth, and then now you've moved up to third.
Is Kyle still the first?
I think Kyle's still the first, and he's been Kyle's been working out, and he's been wearing contacts. He's been doing the contacts thing. Not that if you got glasses, like it takes you down any notches, but he has been doing. I'm looking at Matt over here, and he's wearing glasses. But like it's the change that is nice to see. So if you're doing contacts and you start wearing glasses, it's just changing it up sometimes that moves you up the ladder,
Well, I'd start wearing glasses.
That might bump you to number 2. Depends on the frames though.
Yeah.
You gotta get the frames.
I'm going to put on.
Yeah. Who has the worst frames at work? I'm just kidding. So yeah, now you're number 3 for sure. So Kyle's number 1 and then
and now?
Yeah. Well, now Matt's number 2 because he just took his glasses off and he gave them to you.
But I became number 2 and bumped him.
For sure.
With the glasses on.
So I think I've been thinking a lot.
Yeah?
I've been thinking of
What have you been thinking about?
I've been thinking of starting a band. But I don't want to start a band without a name.
Yeah, what are you going to name?
So I think it'd be cool if we just did a little segment called Band Names. And then we kind of just throw out some ideas on what we've been thinking.
I'm not really prepared for this.
No, well, how about you go first then?
Okay, cool.
Since it'll be, what do they call it?
If I have
what do they do in Chicago? Improv. Since it'll be improv.
We're only in Chicago.
Did you see because Chicago has all those shows like Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. Did you see the SNL skit called Chicago Improv? No. It is really great. I think Tina Fey's in it, but it is If you haven't, you need to stop this podcast and just go watch that, and it'll be great. You'll be having a good day.
These glasses are helping me see better.
That's great. So
That's
maybe
not great.
Maybe we're doing glasses for you from now on. New teeth, new glasses.
Man, I'm a new Phil. I just poked my eye.
There's not a lot of places where you can go and get new glasses and new teeth.
There's not.
I think we just talked about it. I think it's a business venture that we just came up with. What would it be called? Where you can get glasses and teeth?
Optical tooth.
How about
optical?
I teeth you.
It's called
I can teeth you.
It's called dentical. Dentical.
That sounds like an octopus that's a dentist.
Dude,
which listen,
8 denticles.
Octopuses need octopi. Is it octopi?
I think it's actually octopuses.
Octopuses need dentists. I think that's super important. Because they. Okay, did you know they have beaks?
I did know that.
Underneath that thing is.
Man, that's the sound for everything today.
Yeah, underneath that is a beak. So, yeah, I think. So this episode.
We should do a section where I make a sound or you make a sound and I have to recreate it and you get one shot.
That's great. Well, we did this one. We already got one.
Okay.
What are your band names today, though?
Oh, today we have Crispy Bits.
That sounds like a marketing contract team.
Like a sync licensing?
Yeah, it sounds like a Crispy Bits. Like, hit us up if you want.
That's exactly what they're not going for.
It sounds like if you want a successful Apple commercial, hit us up. Crispy Bits.
We got I think of Long John Silver's, just buying all the you can buy the crispy parts that flake off of the fish. You can buy that as a basket there. I haven't been in 20 years, but it was a thing back in the day.
I remember I used to go to Long John Silver's in high school with a guy, and he would get the tray of crumbs, please. That's what it was called.
Oh, it's called the tray of crumbs.
Tray of crumbs. Can I get a tray of crumbs? That's a
sad world.
What does Crispy Bits do?
Well, they actually released their first album.
Yeah.
It's called Greatest Hits.
Greatest Hits?
Yeah. It's all of their greatest hits.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Let's get to you.
Today, I've got my band name today is Chucking Swedes.
Chucking Swedes. Like throwing Swedes.
Chucking Swedes. So, which I am half Swedish. So
you thought maybe you had used that before.
Yeah. So today we're down Chucking Swedes. Chucking Swedes is a very, which I think is appropriate for the guest we have, who worked on stuff with Jack White and the Dead Weather. But it is a very Dead Weather sound. It's a very minimalist but extreme, heavy, powerful guitars. And their debut album is called Cans of Stars.
Cans of Stars. Here's the sound when you open a can of stars.
I get really uncomfortable at when the movie starts and they have all those very detailed sounds of popcorn popping and Cokes being poured.
All the ASMR stuff.
It gives me situational anxiety. I can't do it.
I love it.
I hate it. I have to plug my ears or look down. It's
what about just ASMR things where somebody?
I can't do it. I can't. No, please don't. And I don't even want to go there. There's just something strange about it. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. I think we're going to look back. Yeah. I think we're going to look back and be really glad that we said, welcome Andy Osenga to Deep Tracks Only. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Deep Tracks Only. Today on the podcast, we have Andrew Osenga, and he is a polarizing figure in the music industry because he both goes by Andy and Andrew. And so today we are going to put him on the spot for the very first time and we're going to say, what do you want to be called on this episode of deep tracks only?
Well, so here's the deal. I grew up Andy, and then I moved to Nashville when I was 18 and started like playing music really early, and I felt very young.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'll go by Andrew, and then I'll sound older.
Yeah.
And then Google happened, and now, you got to pick one.
Yeah.
So that's usually what I say, but everyone still calls me Andy. But I always say, hi, I'm Andrew.
Okay.
And everyone says, hi, Andy.
I got you.
What do you think sounds older now? Is that too
They both
hard?
sound
'Cause you're-
ancient. Yeah.
I'm Philip.
Yeah. What does your wife call you?
She calls me Andy.
We'll call you Andrew.
And you know what? Yeah.
We're the same as your
We'll
wife.
put the we'll put the wall. Yeah. I don't think we're privileged enough to use Andy. But listen, honestly, just for the show,
Call me whatever you
yeah. Just for the show, I'm gonna do both, just to throw people
Sounds
off.
great. Just trade it up.
Yeah. Okay, so you went to Nashville when you were 18. The reason why I think it's fun to have you on today is because you are on the liner notes of so many things that have happened in the last 80 years out of Nashville. And I think it would be kind of fun to kind of go through some of those things. My guitar, I'm kind of a weirdie. So my guitar heroes who I learned how to play guitar from weren't necessarily like listening to the classic rock records and things like that. I always got inspired by people who prioritized parts and musicality and tone over frontman shredders, like what we would consider iconic guitar players. And so I heard when I was, I think, 17, I heard your Photographs record, and and so which is a lot of acoustic guitar, but there's some Jazz Master stuff in there of probably just you messing around in your own home studio. But those sounds really inspired me, and really they were very emotional and kind of like the lane and the direction that I thought I had access to. I was like, that's kind of what I want to sound like. I want to do that kind of stuff. And then from then on, you went and played with lots of people and are still doing that. But that's you're a very inspirational musician, and you're very gifted. Man. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show today. Well, you're a secret weapon on the stage and off the stage for a lot of people. And so anyway, welcome to the show.
We just call him secret weapon.
Welcome to the show, Andrew. So let's get this straight. You went to Nashville when you were 18. What was the first thing you did? Not literally like, talk to landlord about living somewhere. I'm sure that happened.
Yeah.
But musically,
first thing I did is a friend took me to a 24-hour Krispy Kreme, which is the thing I didn't know existed.
Whoa!
And I had my mind blown.
Yeah.
Get the
I moved to Nashville. I somehow I was in this really bad band in high school, like most high school bands, and but we played some weird little festival in a cattle barn in central Illinois.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who was like worked at a publishing company, but then like went on the weekends and played gigs with his band. And he was like, hey, that kid's got some good songs. And so I ended up signing a publishing deal when I was a senior in high school. And so.
Wow.
I didn't. Did you?
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't do that. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I didn't know what it meant till I'd already gotten dropped, but.
Yeah.
Not the hard way.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that music was like a real career. Like I thought you were either like a rock star or a choir director. Like and those were the two sort of. I didn't know there's anything in between. And because I'm from a small town in Illinois, so I just like, well, I'll teach. I loved words and stories, and I was like, had a couple great teachers. I was like, well, I'll teach high school English, and I'll go and like write songs to pay for college. So I moved down to Nashville. I was going to pay for college by like being a songwriter, and then kind of doors flew open really quick to put the band back together and like go on the road. So
the band that sucked?
Well, we got better.
Okay, good.
To be very clear, we sucked for a long time.
Yeah.
And then
you got to start somewhere.
When we were professional, and then we eventually got better. And we also, as we got better, we got less successful. So
I gotcha. So is that band still together today?
No.
So it must not have been that great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
you're very correct.
Are you talking about the Normals?
It was a band called The Normals.
Yeah. No, you guys were really cool. I'm serious. It was a very cool band.
You're very kind.
Yeah.
What was great
I am
was,
also really kind. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The Normal. Yeah.
Just,
Okay.
okay.
But then from like being in a band and like just traveling around, like you meet other bands and other, like you make friends with people. And that honestly has been like everybody else went to college and I was in this band that, was just driving around in a van, but we ended up, half the people that I work with now, like 25 years later, are people that I started working with back then in the van. So like all those young bands are now like people that are either like industry jobs or producers or session players.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome. Like that was kind of college for me, like learning how to be a musician.
It was like 1998, 97.
90, yeah. I dropped out. Yeah, I went to 1 year of college, dropped out in 98.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
I went to Belmont University.
Belmont. I've heard of Belmont.
Yeah,
Philip,
all the songwriters.
Belmont's in Nashville. We always.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was sitting over here just
Yeah.
racking my brain.
When we when we get to go to Nashville for work, we try to get like an Airbnb in 12 South down there because it's close to Jenny's, and that's kind of important for us.
Big
Yeah. You had Ladybird Taco. I'm wearing the hat.
Yeah, we've been to Lady Bird Taco.
Have we?
I'm saying
The breakfast taco place on 10th.
I'm saying yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In case they're listening.
Yeah.
In case they're one of the three.
We loved it.
Oh, and it was so good. Hats off to the staff at Lady Bird. I mean, we love you.
Yeah.
But Belmont is on my running route whenever I go there, and there's that ferocious hill going south that
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
just is a real good BPM razor, and I usually have to stop and take a break when I get to the top. So.
It usually slows down my bird scooter because I'm not running.
Philip knows exactly the hill I'm talking about. It's a big hill. It's crazy,
It is.
Us Oklahomies, we got like, we got these big hills up here in Appalachia. It's a mountain. Holy smokes. So you're from small town Illinois. Where in Illinois?
A town called Normal.
I know. No.
Shut the front door.
As
We've got
exciting as it sounds.
the Normals are from a town called Normal.
Man.
Yeah.
Normal, Illinois.
That's like
Philip, you've heard of Normal?
I've been to Normal. I actually used to have an old manager of my old band that was from Normal, Illinois. And then he moved to Effingham.
Oh, yeah.
And we had shirts that said, "Where the Effingham am I?"
that's on what's the interstate that goes through Effingham?
No idea.
24.
Yeah, it's on 20. It's right off 20. Yeah.
57.
50, you're right. It's 57. And it goes right through. Yeah, 57 goes right through because there's a lot of signs for it. It's a very entertaining, 15 minutes.
Is Normal?
Ben Folds wrote a song about driving to Normal for a show and something happened to him in Effingham, but he got it wrong. And on his record, it's Effington.
Oh, man.
He said he got the name wrong.
Oh,
Yeah. He's got a song called like Back to Normal or something.
oh, that's really funny.
Is Normal near Peoria?
It is.
Okay.
About a half an hour.
Okay, yeah. It's really close.
So, okay, what I think is interesting, there's artists that grew up in kind of large metroplexes, things like that. But since you grew up in Normal, Illinois, where did you get your first guitar and what was it?
Oh, dude, that's a great question. Well, so I had a youth group leader who, or a young life leader who I couldn't play. Like I'd learned a couple chords on some friends' guitars.
Uh-huh.
And there was this like kind of youth meeting thing that I would go to.
Yeah.
And they would sing songs. And so they needed somebody to play. And they're like, "Hey, does anybody play guitar?" And I totally lied. I was like, "Oh, I can," but I totally couldn't. And I also didn't own one.
Yeah.
And then we made a deal that I could play this college girl's Yamaha acoustic guitar if I would be the guitar player for their meeting. So I would go early and like practice on her guitar every week. And then the first electric guitar I got was an Epiphone. What was it? They were like, it was the Wilshire.
The Wilshire?
Which is like a 20 4-fret neck and like super thin neck, like super straight, really kind of difficult to play guitar. But super cool looking, very punk.
You pulling it up?
Yeah, I am. Okay.
And I sold that guitar like probably 8 years ago, and I have regretted it every day. Like that was a dumb move.
Do you know who you sold it to?
Oh,
I do.
Yeah, I've seen these. Yeah, those are
them a few years ago.
Did it have the tremolo on it at all? No tremolo?
It did. I didn't have the arm, but it did have a tremolo in it. Yeah.
That's a small town problem, you know?
It was but like I moved to Nashville, like I was on tour and somebody was like, "Hey dude, you need an amp for your guitar." It's like, "Oh, you do?" I didn't know. No one else knew in my town. So no one told me.
Yeah.
I just literally went through an Arion heavy metal pedal, because that was the one pedal that I could find.
Yes.
Into like a DI. That was my rig.
Hey man.
You'll also notice there was no tuner.
Isn't it great how like everybody who starts out, most of the people, you have no idea what you're doing.
There's no forums, man.
Yeah.
There's no social. You just don't know what dudes
YouTube.
are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I learned of the TSA,
And
our band got it, and it was.
You really don't figure it out until you start going to shows and you start being like, "Whoa, what?" I'm like,
Yeah.
What is a pedal board? What? It like blew my mind. I was like, "So you have more than one? That's crazy."
There used to be this great guitar shop in Nashville called Broadway Music that was like, it was like mostly used stuff, but it was all like pro guys. Essentially, it was a big swap fest. Like everybody would bring whatever they were tired of, and then they would trade it for something else. And all the guys that worked there were like touring musicians that would, needed something to do on Tuesday. And so like when you were 21, you didn't know anything. Like you just go and like hang out, and there would be like Kenny Meeks, like just legendary Nashville guitar player, just like hanging out.
Yeah.
And he'd kind of see you looking at something like, "Hey, let me show you about," and all of a sudden these guys would like teach you. Barry Grohl worked there, like sold me my first pedal board. He was just like a legend.
That sounds.
It was so fun. Like that's how I learned so much stuff.
Yeah. That sounds a lot different than probably the guitar store in Normal, Illinois.
This is true.
We had we had one distortion pedal in my band, and I didn't have it. Well, we went to Radio Shack and got a dual 1/4 inch into single 1/4 inch. No. And so we shared the distortion pedal. And then from that on, it went into like the power amp PA, like the Yamaha with the 8 channels and the speakers. And so we did that, and you could tell, like there was definitely some signal loss, because it was trying to process like 2 guitar signals. Oh. It didn't sound great.
But also, you don't know at that age. You're just like, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It might not sound great, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah. And then you just kind of get used to your own gear, I remember going in and recording like very young and bringing my PV because I liked the distortion channel on it. And the guy had like this Mesa Boogie full stack. And he's like, "Why don't you try this?" And I literally was like, "No, thank you." And I was like, I said, "I think you're going to like the way my amp sounds." And then I tracked with it. And he's like, "All right, so I did your way. Will you do my way real quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, dude." And he plugged it in. And I was like, "Hey, I just want to apologize for being wrong. I just, you don't know what you don't know until you know it." And then, man,
it's amazing.
It was really special. Trial by error for sure. But yeah, I had my own distortion pedal at that point,
Okay.
You weren't,
dancing
up with somebody else.
Good for you.
It was really great. Okay, so we've got the Epiphone Wilshire, and then was the Yamaha acoustic? Was it one of those cool red label Japanese?
FG.
It definitely was not. And then what was really sweet was like a bunch of my friends for Christmas like pooled money together because they're like, "This kid needs a guitar," and like high school friends like put together enough money, and I got me a Sigma acoustic guitar, which is like the cheap Martin brand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I still have it. I mean, I used it on a record this week. Like I have it high strung.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was such a cool guitar. So that was sweet. And those are my guitars till I came to Nashville, and then and then the world opens up.
And then look at behind.
Yeah.
Look at me now.
That's what we're seeing. Yeah. Look behind you.
But then you learn.
I don't have just one Gretsch. I've got two.
Yeah.
I'm on a little Gretsch kick right now.
Hey, I can see that. I think it's great. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm having a good time.
Yeah. So you channel your way, you're in the normals, and then what happens, Andrew?
That band ends, as
Yeah.
bands do. And then I got a little, when our band ended, somehow I got like, our record label, I got like a $3,000 check when our band broke up. And I bought an engagement ring for my wife and a Digio One Pro Tools rack, like the first home studio rack.
Yeah.
Cool.
And high class. You could do,
I loved that thing.
you think you could do maybe 16 tracks total?
Hey.
Pro Tools. And so that's when I started kind of getting into production and learning how to make records. And then, and that's when I made that photographs record on that Digio One. And then, started kind of playing with other bands. So I joined a band named Caedmon's Call at that point. And just kind of like, for the next like 12 years was like a Christian music guitar player. So I played with them a ton, and a band called Jars of Clay, a guy named Stephen Chris Chapman, and like did like the CCM thing.
Yeah. Who are these? Yeah. We've never heard of these bands.
A guy.
These little
It's
no-namers.
like if you live in that world, you're like, wow. And if you don't, like, I've never heard of any of these people.
I don't know, man. Jars, that was a pretty big,
I mean,
that was a pretty
I
big
loved that band
success.
so much. Like they were my favorite band in high school. And then to be able to like get to play with them. And I did a tour with them where they played their first record from front to back.
Oh man.
And that was the season where like I was kind of filling in for two different guys. So because they have two guitar players. So one weekend I would be one guy and I would play his parts and sing his harmonies. And the next weekend I'd be the other guy and play his parts and sing his harmonies.
Oh, gosh.
So I got to do every part of the record. And it was like a dream come true.
That sounds, and it also sounds really challenging.
So fun.
Because I've seen them live, and the harmonies. I mean, they're just on. They were oh my gosh. Hey, do you know when I saw them? I saw them. I think in 2002 with Caedmon's
Six
Call,
Flags?
and I think that's you were. I think you were. You were playing guitar on that show because Caedmon's Call was like, hey, we're going to let our guitar player like have one song so we can take a break. And then I think you played high school band. And then I was like, yo, I don't know what this guy is, but I love that song. And then I went to your merch table afterwards and I bought your record. And then from then on learned how to play more guitar. So
Where was this show?
it was in Norman, Oklahoma. So yeah, I took my little brother and I was like, "You want to go to a rock show?" He's like, "Yeah." So
Lowercase R.
yeah, hey dude, it was not an.
Yeah, that was a really fun tour though. Those are just like some amazing people. And it's just been super fun. Yeah. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so I think you've got a lot of you've got a lot of collaborations, but what I think is interesting, what I really like is kind of the step sideways kind of work when you work on your own stuff.
Yeah.
Andrew. So like for those records, like who are you channeling? What are you channeling? A lot of us are like, when we're writing music or making albums or making projects, we're channeling some of our favorite artists. Sometimes we're channeling like a book we read, honestly. Some of us are channeling like a greater story. Like when you kind of chart out what you want to do next, like what is the inspiration behind some of that? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
That's a great question.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I thought about it on the drive this morning.
This one's going to knock him out.
This one's gonna be great.
You know what's been really fun is like, so I mean, like, having been like a session player, you play on tons of records, and then for the last like 10 years, I've been working at a record label or a couple different record labels. So like, I'm always in the midst of like 9 records where the goal is to help that person do the thing they want to do.
Yeah.
And to sound like what they need to sound like. And so I kind of figured out early on, like, I probably need to make more music than on my own than I used to, so that when I'm in with these other people, I'm not trying to get them to make the record that I feel like I want to make.
Oh, it's interesting.
You know, like,
yeah.
I'm like, well, you guys need to sound like the War on Drugs because I'm really into the War on Drugs right now.
Yeah.
Like, no, they don't. They don't need to sound like that. But you can, you know, you go do your own thing. So,
Sure.
So my own music has always been kind of like an outlet for like just more of a hobby. Like I want to chase this. So, and that tends to be things a little more experimental or like I love stories. And so I love like songwriting that tells stories. And then I just love great guitar playing. And so I try to, you know, just rip off like Photographer's Record to me is like all me trying to be Mark Knopfler and failing. But like in the process, you find sort of your own voice, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, you just sort of chase those things down. And what's been interesting too in the last few years is like my kids are getting older. And so I've kind of, it's making music now has been less about, what am I feeling? What do I want to say?
Yeah.
Like, check this cool thing out. Because I realized like kind of earlier in my career, a lot of like there's like artistic self-expression. This is me saying what I want to say. But then there's also a good bit of like insecurity. It's like, I hope you like this. I hope this makes you think I'm cool. Like, listen to how cool this sound is.
Sure.
And I realized you can kind of listen back and go, oh man, I'm just trying so hard to like be something I'm not, to try to impress people. Just be, you know, out of your own insecurity. And so as I've gotten older and been able to kind of grow out of some of that, like, it's more about like, who can I serve with these records? Like what stories can like actually like be friends to people? You know, when you hear some song and it's like, oh, I just needed that song right now. Like I want to give people those kinds of songs. And especially as my kids are getting older, to be, not that my kids are going to be like fans of like their dad, you know, that's weird.
But we all want that to happen, don't we?
My kids are going to be fans of me.
Yeah.
Just like, I have teenage girls. They want to listen to Taylor Swift, and they should. That's right.
Yes.
Like, but you know, if they're out somewhere and I'm like, I'm not around, and they want to hear, you know, just there may be a day where they want to hear from their dad. Like, do I have songs out there that, that are something that like I want them to hear, that they can be like a guide and a friend to them, and still sort of care for them when I'm not around. And that's been kind of probably weird to say, but it has been really fun and like life giving. So yeah, I love coming down here and making stuff.
So one of the most interesting projects, I think, for me was Leonard the Lonely Astronaut.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So if you're listening and you don't know what this is, so Andrew and Andy got together and then created a spaceship, right? So built a spaceship and then recorded songs in the spaceship, but songs sung really in character. So a guy who had fallen on hard times and then took a job as a space trucker to really leave the earth and really just kind of write songs and have some alone time. Am I spot on, right?
You're dead on. And yeah, it was, I can't believe I did that. And it was so fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So the story is like, I'm an insomniac. I have a hard time sleeping. And there was a couple of years where like I started seeing doctors, like, I cannot sleep. I'm like, and this one doctor was like, look, try this, like make up a story in your mind and just like revisit that story every night. And eventually like it sort of like takes your mind off the things that are stressing you out and keeping you awake. And it becomes a signal to your body, like, it's time to go to bed. We're thinking about that thing.
What a cool doctor.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it worked. And I was really into this like show called Battlestar Galactica at the time.
Yeah.
Spaceship. So literally just like would lay in bed and design like a spaceship until I'd fall asleep. And then just like the songwriter in me was like, put a guy in there, made him real lonely, wrote him this backstory, it was like real tragic. And then I started writing songs about it.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. And yeah, so we like, that's when like Kickstarter was new. So like Kickstarted the record, and part of it was like, come to Nashville. And there's a buddy of mine has this taco place and it has like a sort of warehouse behind it. And it was just kind of sitting empty. And I was like, hey, can I like build something in there for a while? He's like, yeah, man, whatever.
Yeah.
So we built like a movie set of a spaceship. And then a lady like who worked at Nike in the elite athletes division, who makes like LeBron's clothes, like custom. Was like, hey, can I make you a spacesuit? And I was like,
Yeah.
totally. So literally, like the
Wow.
people that make like, yeah, you know, that kind of that level stuff. Like their project like was to make this guy a spacesuit. So I got this like custom Nike spacesuit.
Oh my God.
Which is so ridiculous.
Where is it? Is it
It's now in
behind
my
you?
brother's closet because he borrowed it last year for Halloween.
Get the-
And yeah, but it's just like hanging in our hall closet, like next to the vacuum cleaner. Like this is the most random thing.
Oh
But yeah,
my
so like for like
gosh.
3 months, then I like went. I'd like drop my kids off at school. I'd drive to my spaceship and I'd like make space music for it
Make
all
space
day,
music.
and then go home for
Yeah.
dinner. And it was so fun, man. And yeah, the record was kind of this like exploration of like grief and sort of learning to value relationships before it's too late. So some of my favorite songs, and got to get like make some wild sounds, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
I have to ask, did it end up backfiring on you, going so deep into your dream, you know, what was supposed to keep you help you get to sleep, that you started like building a spaceship? Did it like that would keep me awake
Yeah. How'd you sleep?
thinking of it?
Yeah, it probably got a little more stressful there in the middle of that process. Yeah.
It's like,
Or it's more when you start telling friends like, hey, I want to do this. And you go, will you still be my friend?
yeah. Also, when you're building something, it's like, yeah.
Dude, I would have been your friend in a heartbeat.
You're going down the project, and then you got a backwards joist, and so you got to take 40 minutes and drive to Home Depot and get the right joist and like go back and just do the whole thing. And it's just, but then you want to take the other one back because you're not going to use it, and it's like it's $6, and you know, oh man, that's terrible. Let's talk more about joists.
Man.
Okay, so what year was that? Did all that happen?
That was
So
2012.
2012. Okay, so I loved that project, and so that was for me. That was pre my job, like my duties at Walrus, and so I was working like at an energy company, and a kind of like a corporate job at a place with like 10,000 people. You know, one of those, and I loved it. Great time, learned a lot, met a lot of people. Still have friends from there. But wasn't doing really thing with guitar pedals. Wanted to, you know, someday, soon. And I just remember listening to this guy who like built a spaceship and made records in it. And I was just like, yeah, man, this is so cool, you know? Because I was heavy into like Dune and the whole Ender's Game series.
Oh, yes.
And
all of those.
it just, I was just going deep on lots of stuff, like, you know, some Stephen King. Just so, while my job that I had, I was able to kind of listen to audiobooks at the same time. Mm-hmm. Don't tell anybody that still writes letters of recommendation for me, but that's what I was doing. And so I was also, you know, using stories to stay sane in that time. And you know how at the end of Good Will Hunting, when Ben Affleck goes up and knocks on Matt Damon's door and he's like, not there. Instead of Ben Affleck being disappointed, he's just like, yes, he's not here. He's gone on and he's doing better things, you know? That was me listening to Leonard, the Lonely Astronaut album in my car.
That's
Just
amazing.
like, yes, dude, this is so great. Okay, so then we move on. And then where's the spaceship now?
We had to, well, yeah, eventually he was like, hey, I kind of need to use this building again. Can you get this out of here? So I have a few, like we built it in like these wall panels. So I have a few of them left for every now and then we'll still do some shows around it. And like, I'll kind of I have enough to like decorate the stage. Mm-hmm. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Everything else went to the dump.
So sad, but that's just the way it is, people. That's just the way it is. You build things and then they get torn down.
Do you guys remember the show TRL?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Request Live on MTV.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
In like
You're kidding me?
1999. It was
Yeah.
like all the rage. And these little heads would pop up in the corner and people would sort of like out on the street in New York City would be like, I want to hear the Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I was ever in New York City was probably 1998, 99. And we were walking, we had a day off, our band, and we were walking down the street, and turned out we were like right in front of the MTV office, and there were like hundreds of people out front. And we're just walking through, and somebody goes, "Does anybody here like Tupac?" And I realized like that's somebody who works at MTV. I was like, "I will." And then they grabbed me, and then I got to be one of the little pop-up heads in the corner of TRL.
Yeah.
And I said, this was live. This was before they had like the 5-second pause, so like what they would do is you would talk to like an intern, figure out what you were going to say, and then you would say it to them over and over and over and over. And then they threw it to somebody else, and you say it to them over and over and over. And then they put you on camera, and you like can't do anything but say that thing. And so
you said the F word.
I said, "Hi, I'm Andy Osenga from Normal, Illinois, and I requested Tupac Shakur's Changes because he took a great Bruce Hornsby song and made it his own." And, there we go. Somewhere that's on a VHS tape.
Oh man, that is.
I don't know why I told that story.
That is unreal.
love it.
I started singing Changes.
No, dude. So I remember just in deep anticipation of, man, I really wanted Creed to get to the top, and then I really wanted POD to get to the top. And I just remember the day when Rock the Party from POD got to #1, and I was like calling my friends. I was like, you gotta get on MTV right now and watch TRL. POD, Rock the Party just got #1 because it had that cool delay part, like dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah, dude, they were a great band.
We're gonna rock the party all night long, dude. San Diego bands. There's just so many. There's so many good San Diego bands. You got POD. You got Smash Mouth. You got Switchfoot. You just got a lot of really good bands out of San Diego. A lot of good sounds. I like to defend Smash Mouth. Just because that first record's freaking amazing. I mean, it's just unreal.
I mean, if you got to be a one-hit wonder, you could do worse than being Smash Mouth,
dude.
We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Are they a one-hit wonder?
I don't think. I think they've got like 5 or 6.
Three-hit wonder.
Like, yeah, 3
I mean, just give them give them what to do. Ask Chat GDP.
We need Chat GDP.
That is like, yeah.
Chat gross
like
domestic product.
That was like an old man saying, "That's Chat GDP.
Can you give me more?
$11 trillion. Golly. I really had another place to go, but you started talking
like
about.
You were going somewhere.
Yeah, I did. But you started talking about TRL, and then
I don't regret it.
I don't regret
it.
It kind of puts me in the wanting to talk about pop-up video also, but then I just like, no, we can't go there.
It's a great show.
Pop-up video. Remember pop-up video?
Remember
VH1?
when we all liked the same music though, as
Yes.
Yeah.
a culture?
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
No.
I know.
We don't have that like everybody knows those songs.
That
It just doesn't
unifying.
really happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about that. We had Isaac Hansen on several episodes ago, and then he was talking about that. It was like, part of the success of being a big artist in the 90s is that like everybody's listening to the same thing, whether they want to or not,
Yeah.
So then it's like, if you don't want to listen to him, you just go listen to something else. But instead, Hansen, you're either forced to listen to Hansen or you enjoy listening to Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just remember they were on SNL, and then they were skits on SNL while they were on SNL about people who just didn't want to listen to Hansen.
I remember that skit.
It was kind of like,
I was probably one of those people, but it was great that they could play into it.
Yes.
yeah, it's great. They're still making great music.
They are. They're a great band.
Great folks.
And aren't they? Are they from Oklahoma?
They are.
Oh yeah, they are.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
They're from Tulsa. Yeah, and listen, I've got a lot of grace. I've got a lot of capacity for grace because people have shown me grace. And so even though they're from Tulsa, I give them grace. So they should be from Oklahoma City, but they're not.
Yeah.
One of the producers over here is like shaking his head because he's from Tulsa. Yeah.
Should have been from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City.
He's a mute. You're out.
You're a producer now.
So what? Yeah. Andrew, Andy, I think what's interesting and awesome is that with your side records, I don't call them side records, with your solo records, especially on some of the last ones, you're able to get these. It kind of sounds like it's just you most of the time, but you are able to get these large scale sounds and songs. Like these songs sound full, so you kind of get through some of these songs, and it takes you a couple songs to realize, like, hey, I don't think I've heard any drums yet. You know, how do you do that? How do you make minimalist music, but make it sound big? And I'm asking for people listening who want to make a lot out of a little. Maybe like a limited resources time, maybe a limited resources finances, maybe a limited resources gear. People. How do you your people friend people telling you, like, how do you make these large sounding full songs without a lot of input, if that makes sense?
Oh man, that's really kind of you to say that.
I'm feeling real nice today, bud. Yeah.
Well, I love doing that. Like I work with a ton of great musicians, and so, I love collaboration. I love having different people on records, and but there is something about kind of getting in the zone, and just kind of building something on your own. And I remember years ago, like in my first band, like we were all like youth group kids. We all grew up strumming guitars, and so like when we started playing, like everybody played every note of every song all the time, and we were all playing chords, and the piano, keyboard players hitting every note, and like,
yeah.
We went to go see like somebody play with a symphony, and it like struck me that like none of them are playing chords. Like everybody's only playing one note at a time, and they're not all playing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that started this sort of exploration of like, how little can I play on any instrument at any given time? And how do I let those single notes, like a symphony, like, because the sound of a symphony is just like gigantic. But it's never one person just banging. It's like everybody doing their one part really specifically and really thoughtfully. So that's what I try to do on those projects, is just like find little parts that complement each other.
Yeah.
And that can build off of each other, but never like, never are two things doing the same thing. So my goal is to have like 4 or 5 pieces. And I remember also I worked with, when I was coming up as a producer, I worked under a guy named Vance Powell for a bunch of years, who's like, went on to win like a couple Grammys for like best engineered records. And I mean, he's just a legendary mix engineer, producer, and did like the Dead Weather and all the Jack White stuff and Radiohead. I mean, all kinds of crazy things.
Dead Weather was my favorite Jack White project.
Dude, I got to assist on those records.
Did you really?
Oh,
that's probably why they sound good.
No, I did not. I went and got food, and at one point put a tape machine in the back of my car and drove it to Jack's, which was very cool.
Wow.
And then just got to stand in the back of the room. And
man, that sounds tight. Talk about like, making a lot with a little. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, they would constantly reference AC/DC, and the fact that there's like kick, snare, vocal, guitar. Technically there's bass, but it's like barely in the mix. It's like the fewer things in the mix, the louder you could turn everything up.
Yeah.
And so those records sound like dun.
I want that tattooed.
Like there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was like, to me that's the same, like the way AC/DC and a symphony like work the same way, which is like a few things really, really well, as opposed to everything doing everything.
Mm-hmm. Let the song breathe.
Yeah.
I'm writing down, the less things in the mix, the louder everything can be.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to get that tattooed.
Your first tattoo. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, how do I tell this story? No, I remember, so one of the big bands out of Stillwater is All American Rejects. And then, and they got big kind of at a time where just stacking guitars was the thing. And it was, and I valued it as well, in recording. I was like, we got to stack. I'm just going to sit here and play this high G over the whole chorus and then mix it in somewhere, please. But I like what you said. I remember reading an article of of them talking about Swing Swing, one of their first debut big hit, and then them talking about like, yeah, at one point there's 18 guitars happening at one time. And I remember thinking about that and being like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that's not a good idea.
Like the engineer in me is just like, that's 18 things that are phasing each other out.
It's just,
like every one of those is making, every one you add makes everything else sound thinner.
Yeah. And then when you think about songs that are doing that, now hold on, no offense to All American Rejects. I wanted to be,
he was putting like 200 guitars on Siamese Dream tracks.
See,
and those things sound freaking unbelievable.
There you go. Yeah.
But they also were real phasey and kind of, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Tyson Ritter in high school. He was like the pep assembly MC, and when I was 2 years behind him, and golly, he was super handsome and everybody loved him and he was hilarious. And then he was in this band that went to New York to record a record. We were like, who is this unicorn, this demigod walking amongst us? Holy smokes. Yeah, and then I applied to be pep assembly MC, and I did not get the job. So super sad.
Look at you now. You have a podcast.
I got a podcast.
To when he drops.
I know. Big middle finger to the cheer coaches that wouldn't let me in. Golly, I'm kidding. Cheer coaches at Stillwater High School.
Previous,
because I know they're big fans of the show. Big fans. My alma mater. But when you contrast that with the sound of the guitar, exactly what you say, like on Back in Black, it's like it still sounds like it was fresh out of the grocery store yesterday. That guitar,
dude,
it is like
unbelievable, and
it gets better. AC/DC for me gets better over time. So if you can. If you can kind of like separate the brand, because AC/DC is kind of a brand now.
Sure.
It's like an ideology, like how Kiss is, or like just lots of it's a very like subculture brand. But if you can separate the brand just from the sounds, you'll have a much better experience. And when the sounds come on and I hear them and I show them to my kids, they're like, "Dude, that sounds powerful."
Yeah, you can't argue with it.
I know.
It's so good.
Let's make some AC/DC records today. Are you busy, Philip?
I'm not busy.
Are you busy? Can we do this? Can we make this happen? But what I think is interesting is what are you doing with the Recording Academy? Can you kind of talk me through that a little bit?
My Instagram post?
Yeah, what is that about?
Oh, I just so I was in the academy for a long time, which just means that you have to submit your credits to say like you've been a part of professional recordings or whatever, and they sort of have to hit some certain limit of, there's like a sort of threshold of like what they accept, and then when you're in that, then you can vote for the Grammys and like be a part of nomination process and stuff like that. And I was in it for a while, and then I stopped paying my dues because life and kids, and it was not a priority. And then I've worked on a couple of records in the last couple of years that felt like, man, that should have been nominated. I don't know why that wasn't. So I was like, I gotta join the Academy again. But you have to get people have to nominate you. Like it's a whole process. Like it takes a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got accepted back in.
That's amazing. So you're voting on records
to post on Instagram about it.
You're like a real musician. That's amazing.
I didn't know that.
You're like a real deal.
Yeah, it's more complicated than you would think. It's kind of surprising how they keep a really strict sort of role, they don't sort of let anybody sign up, which is kind of, it does actually make you sort of trust the process a little bit more.
Yeah. What were the records that you thought should have been nominated that weren't?
Man, the Citizens record that we did a couple of years ago, I thought should have. This band called Citizens.
Zach, what's his name?
Zach Bolin.
Zach Bolin.
And we just put out a record a couple months ago that I definitely that was like the impetus. Is like, I got to join because I got to make sure this record gets a nomination.
Yeah.
And called I Can't Find the Edges of You, and it's just fantastic. So,
a Citizens record also?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
Great band. Really good vocals.
Dude.
Really good, unique vocal sound.
Like a real singer. Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan, people. Okay, so what's it look like? So how does that work? They just send you an email and like, fill out your Google survey and vote on album of the year for us. Like what does that look like?
Yeah.
Behind the
something like
scenes.
that. It's a very official Google survey, but yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole.
But it's like it's web-based. It's web-based, correct?
So
I hope so.
I don't know. I'm kind of getting back into it. Honestly, the last time I was in the academy, it was
It's a punch card.
It wasn't quite the same. So they've definitely upped their digital game.
Yeah. Do you get to vote on everything?
No, you only get to vote on things that are like tangential to your category. So I can vote on things that are like in the Christian gospel sphere and in the like indie singer-songwriter folk sphere, like the places where my credits.
Yeah.
And then everybody can vote on like record of the year, song of the year, like the big.
Oh, they can?
The big like 4 or 5 new artists of the year. We can all vote on those.
I think it's interesting that you said the big 4 or 5, because there used to be like 4 or 5 people in each of those category, and now I feel like there's like 8 or 10, and it gets a little confusing.
They did that because it was a lot of white guys getting.
So
It's sort of all, and so they did it so they can widen it so more diverse people can get a shot.
Yeah.
So we're widening out the genres that we are raising and bringing to the top.
And I think what they're trying to do, and I actually really respect this, is they're trying to make it less about who won the best and more about like this lets 10 people be celebrated for their great work. And they're trying to make that the list of nominees is like a bigger deal. Not like, I mean, obviously it's a big deal to win it, but it's like
Sure.
that way they can really kind of care and like shed a spotlight on more and more people.
Yeah.
Rather than just sort of like focusing on who's the best. It's like, no, these are all the best.
Yeah.
If you make it this far, you are all the best.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool the way they've done that.
That makes sense. So does that mean you get to go to the Grammys? Do you get to, or do you watch it from
means
home?
I could buy tickets. You
gotta buy tickets. How much are tickets to the Grammys? How much is them?
They're not cheap.
We're talking like 1,000, 10,000.
What are we talking here?
Here's the deal. But I want the Citizens record to get nominated, and then I get to go.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Do you get to buy tickets, or do you get to go?
If you're nominated.
I have a feeling our record label would probably buy them for us.
Yeah, very cool.
The artists
very cool.
get them, and the team. Yeah, I don't know.
So even if you're nominated, they don't give
You're asking me questions about a thing I don't totally understand.
That's what we do. We ask questions about things that people don't understand, and then we talk about things that we don't
The other guy
understand.
who listens to this podcast, who is like been nominated for multiple awards, is gonna be like, he's got it totally wrong.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's only the cheer coaches at Stillwater High School. Those are the only people that are listening to this show. So, oh man, hey, thanks for being on the show today. I just want to apologize for everything and just say sorry. But I also,
This has been so fun.
yeah, I want to ask just before you go, like, what your favorite Christmas movie? Oh, actually, I want to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
What are you working on right now, and where can I send people to engage in the art that you're making? That's my first question. And the second question is, what's the best Christmas movie?
Oh man. Well, I'm putting out a lot of my own solo music, so I'm kind of releasing songs on a project called Headwaters, just very slowly, like song a month kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
sounds nice.
On the Spotify, and I'm also doing every couple months I put out a little mini EP called The Quiet Hours, which is like sort of like Fleet Foxes-y versions of like old hymns that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really fun, just kind of real artsy and real like kind of meditative. And then I'm a part of this thing called Anchor Hymns, which is like a collection of songwriters who are all sort of like, they're not all sort of like church songwriters, but they're all people who have like a faith story and are kind of gathering to like write songs to be used in those settings that are maybe a little more sort of modern and sort of reflective of our culture and both lyrically and sonically. And it's been like super, super fun. So I get to work with some of my heroes on that, and we're putting out tons of music as Anchor Hymns, and that's been really fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of work in that sphere. And then, that's what I've been working on. And then
That's beautiful.
my favorite Christmas movie would have to be Christmas Vacation.
Okay, boom, we got a winner. We got a winner.
I will say I grew up on like I grew up in a household that was very limited your exposure to certain things of the world, and so we had the made for TV, like the TV edited version of it on like VHS.
I think that's great.
But then we're like, my wife and I are like, oh, we want to show this to our kids, and so we got, and it turns out that movie is like kind of filthy.
Yeah.
And our children, who were quite young at the time, who were like, were like so shocked and offended that we would show them this movie.
Yeah.
And like judged us very harshly. And so it's
that is so
how do
funny.
you think we would think this is funny? Like, I don't know. We really thought it was so funny.
How old were they?
They were like 11, 9.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's the question every year is like, is this the year when we show them Christmas Vacation?
Yeah, it turns out that some of those jokes don't age terribly well.
But they're still funny.
But they're still very
They're
funny.
still real good. Every year, I'm just like, I mean, it gets better.
They went to bed, and we still watched it because it's so great.
It is so great. Oh, man. Hey, thanks for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
You.
Hey, this is awesome.
Also, thank you guys for being like the best pedal company. Like there are lots of great pedals out there. I am obsessed with pedals. You know this, and but my board is like mostly Walrus because you just make great things, and you care about us all and support us well. And if anybody's still listening to this and you don't have the 385, that's the freaking best overdrive pedal out there. I feel like that's your secret weapon, guys.
Hey,
that is just a
coming from
pedal.
this secret weapon.
thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
I did a series of shows where that was the only pedal I had.
So
just that pedal, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Depends on when we release this, but we're gonna keep going with it, if you know what I mean.
Good.
The 385.
Count me in. Whatever.
Yeah, that's about all I can say right now.
All right.
But it is
maybe more.
It is. Listen, yeah, it's like per capita, it's our most beloved pedal. So
is it?
Yeah, I mean,
in the shop,
it's not the top seller, but everybody who has it is like, this is where it's at. I appreciate
it's a
it.
monster.
And, so I appreciate those kind words, and I'm gonna take those, put them in my heart, and let them marinate and ferment for a little while. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna let that dirt shine. That's what I'm gonna do.
Let that dirt shine.
Yeah. Oh, praise.
Well, hey, thank you guys.
Praise be. All right. Thanks, man. Love you. Bye.
Cheers.